The year is 2013. It is a regular Thursday afternoon in August, and then Warner Bros. Makes an announcement that detonates across the internet like a bomb. Ben Affleck has been cast as Batman. The reaction is immediate, savage, and unlike anything Hollywood had seen directed at a single casting decision in modern memory. Hundreds of thousands of people sign an online petition demanding the decision be reversed. The hashtag is merciless. Late-night hosts spend entire monologues destroying the choice. Film journalists who had covered Hollywood for decades call it one of the worst casting decisions ever made. The consensus from the internet, loud, unified, and completely certain, is that Ben Affleck is a joke, that he had already failed once at the superhero genre with Daredevil, that he was washed up, that his best days were 15 years behind him, that whoever made this decision had lost their mind completely. And here is what every single one of those people failed to understand. Ben Affleck had heard this before. He had been buried by Hollywood once already, and what he did the first time he climbed out of that grave should have told everyone exactly what he was capable of doing the second time. But nobody was paying attention to that story. They were too busy writing the obituary. To understand 2013, you have to understand 2003. Because 2003 was the year Ben Affleck became Hollywood's most public cautionary tale. He had won an Academy Award for Good Will Hunting in 1998. He was one of the most recognizable faces in the world. He was dating Jennifer Lopez, a relationship so omnipresent in tabloid culture that the media fused their names into a single word, Bennifer, and then came Gigli, a romantic crime comedy starring Jennifer Lopez that became one of the most catastrophic box office failures in Hollywood history. Critics did not just dislike it. They used it as a weapon. It won 5 Razzie Awards including Worst Picture. It lost tens of millions of dollars. But here is the thing about Gigli. The film itself was not the real problem. The real problem was something else entirely. The real problem was that Gigli arrived at the exact moment when the tabloid coverage of Bennifer had reached such a suffocating saturation point that Ben Affleck, the actor, had completely disappeared. Ben Affleck, the celebrity. Nobody could see the work anymore. All they could see was the circus. And circuses, no matter how entertaining, are not taken seriously. Daredevil had already underperformed. Gigli destroyed what remained. Jersey Girl followed and barely registered. Surviving Christmas came and went without a trace. 4 consecutive failures. The industry that had celebrated him 6 years earlier now treated him as a symbol of overexposure and squandered potential. And this is where everything almost collapsed. Because Ben Affleck was not just losing movies. He was losing himself. Berkeley, August 15, 1972. Benjamin Gieza Affleck. Bolt is born to Timothy Affleck, a social worker and aspiring actor, and Christopher Ann Bolt, an elementary school teacher. The family moves to Cambridge, Massachusetts, when Ben is young. His father struggles with alcohol addiction, a fact Ben has spoken about publicly and with remarkable honesty in interviews throughout his life. Cambridge is not Hollywood, but it is intellectual. It is serious. It is a place where ideas matter and ambition is expected. Ben grows up around theater. His mother takes him to plays. He begins acting in local productions as a child. Not because someone pushed him, but because something in it felt like the most natural thing in the world. And then he meets a kid from the neighborhood named Matt Damon. They are childhood friends. They go to the same school. They share the same obsessive love of film and story, and the possibility that two kids from Cambridge might actually find a way to make it in an industry 3,000 miles away. They spend years writing together, arguing together, dreaming together. But here is what most people do not know about that friendship, the script that would change both their lives. Good Will Hunting was not an overnight inspiration. It was years of work, years of rejection, years of being told by Hollywood that two unknown kids from Massachusetts had no business selling a script to a major studio. They sold it anyway. And the night they won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, two young men from Cambridge standing on the most famous stage in entertainment was supposed to be the beginning of everything. For Matt Damon it was. For Ben Affleck, the path was going to be considerably more complicated. After Good Will Hunting, the expectations for Ben Affleck were enormous. And for a few years, he met them. Armageddon in 1998, a massive commercial hit. He was a movie star, unquestionably. Shakespeare in Love, Sum of All Fears, Changing Lanes. But there was a pattern forming that nobody wanted to address directly. The critical respect that Good Will Hunting had earned him was slowly being separated from the commercial choices he was making. The blockbusters paid well. They kept him visible. But they were not building the kind of legacy that matched the Oscar on his shelf. And then the Bennifer era arrived and swallowed everything. The tabloid coverage of his relationship with Jennifer Lopez became so consuming that it created a new and damaging phenomenon. When people thought of Ben Affleck, they stopped thinking of an actor. They thought of a celebrity, a punchline, a man whose personal life had become more interesting to the public than his professional work. Gigli crystallized everything. In 2004, Ben Affleck entered rehab for alcohol addiction. He has spoken about this directly and without self-pity in numerous interviews. The pressure, the public humiliation, the loss of professional identity. He was 32 years old. He had an Oscar. He had a production company. He had every resource success could provide. And he felt like he was disappearing. But what happened next shocked everyone who had already written the final chapter of his story. Ben Affleck does not act his way back into Hollywood's respect. He directs his way back. Gone Baby Gone is a crime thriller set in the working-class neighborhoods of Boston, the city he knows in his bones. It stars his brother Casey Affleck as a private detective investigating the disappearance of a young girl. It is based on a Dennis Lehane novel. It is gritty and morally complex and deeply specific to a place and community. It is also extraordinary. Critics are stunned. Not pleasantly surprised, genuinely stunned. The film demonstrates a visual intelligence and storytelling confidence that nobody had associated with Ben Affleck because nobody had thought to look for it. Roger Ebert gives it 4 stars. It appears on numerous year-end best of lists. The conversation begins to shift. Then comes The Town in 2010. He directs and stars in another Boston crime film. A heist movie with genuine tension and character depth that earns over $150 million worldwide and more critical praise. Hollywood is paying attention again. But here is where the real turning point arrives, and it comes wrapped in an idea that almost everyone told him was too ambitious. Ben Affleck wants to direct a film about one of the strangest and most audacious rescue operations in CIA history. In 1979, during the Iranian hostage crisis, 6 American diplomats hid in the home of the Canadian ambassador in Tehran. The CIA's plan to extract them involved creating a fake Hollywood science fiction film. A cover story elaborate enough to convince Iranian authorities that the Americans were a Canadian film crew scouting locations. The operation was called Argo. The story is almost unbelievable, and it is completely true. Ben Affleck directs it, produces it, stars in it as CIA operative Tony Mendez. He assembles a remarkable cast: Bryan Cranston, Alan Arkin, John Goodman. He shoots with a visual style that recreates the texture of 1970s cinema so accurately that some audiences initially believe they are watching archive footage. The tension in the film's final act is almost unbearable. A sequence at Tehran's Mehrabad airport that has audiences gripping their armrests, even though the outcome is a matter of historical record. Argo opens in October 2012. It makes over $230 million worldwide. And on February 24, 2013, Ben Affleck stands on the stage of the Dolby Theater in Hollywood as Argo wins the Academy Award for Best Picture. He does not just accept the award. He gives one of the most emotionally raw acceptance speeches in Oscar history. Talking about failure, about perseverance, about marriage requiring work, about never giving up. The room is silent and completely held. The man Hollywood had buried 5 years earlier is holding the most important trophy in the industry. And then, 2 months later, he is announced as Batman. SENE7. T Sakon Boral and Etskod Riso RRETIM. The internet's reaction to the Batman casting was covered in Scene 1. But here is what happened after the noise. Ben Affleck showed up. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice opened in 2016 to mixed reviews. The film itself was divisive, but the near-unanimous critical consensus on one specific element was striking. Ben Affleck was the best part of it. His Batman, older, damaged, brutal, carrying decades of loss, was immediately recognized as one of the most compelling interpretations of the character ever put on screen. The people who had signed the petition went quiet. Then came a performance that reminded everyone what he was capable of when given the right material entirely. The Accountant in 2016, a genuinely compelling thriller that performed strongly. But it was 2023 that delivered the moment nobody predicted. Air, directed by Ben Affleck, produced by his and Matt Damon's production company Artists Equity, told the story of Nike's pursuit of Michael Jordan for the Air Jordan deal. The film is warm, funny, intelligent, and deeply human. Critics love it. Audiences love it. It becomes one of the most talked about films of the year. Ben Affleck, director, producer, actor, delivering a film of genuine quality and commercial success simultaneously. The same pattern as Argo. Except this time nobody was surprised. Because this time they had learned not to count him out. Here is something about Ben Affleck that deserves more attention than it usually receives. He talks about his struggles with an honesty that is genuinely rare in Hollywood. He has spoken publicly about his alcohol addiction, about going to rehab, about relapsing, about the difficulty of managing sobriety in an industry built around celebration and excess. He has spoken about the psychological cost of the tabloid years, about what it means to have your personal life become public entertainment, about the specific loneliness of being famous and invisible simultaneously. He has spoken about failure, Not in the vague motivational poster sense, but in the specific, uncomfortable. This is what it actually felt like sense. In a culture where actors are carefully managed brands, designed to project only strength and success, Ben Affleck consistently shows the working, and that honesty, uncomfortable as it sometimes is part of what makes his resilience credible, because it is not performed resilience, it is real. Here is the truth about Ben Affleck that Hollywood keeps relearning every few years. He is not a cautionary tale. He is not a comeback story. Because that framing suggests there was ever a final defeat. He is something more interesting and more complicated than either of those narratives. He is a man of genuine and multiple talents, as a writer, as a director, as an actor, who has spent his entire career fighting the version of himself that celebrity tried to create. The tabloid punchline was never the real person. The failed action star was never the complete picture. The man behind the camera, the one who made Gone Baby Gone and The Town and Argo and Air. That is the version of Ben Affleck that the noise kept drowning out. He won his first Oscar at 25 for writing. He won his second at 40 for directing. The distance between those two moments contains more failure, more public humiliation, more genuine darkness than most people will experience in an entire lifetime. And he walked through all of it. Not gracefully, not without cost, not without the kind of scars that show up in honest interviews, and quiet moments, and the particular look in someone's eyes when they have actually been somewhere difficult and come back. But he walked through it. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, there is a kid who used to dream with his best friend about making it in Hollywood. That kid won 2 Oscars, got buried twice, got up twice, and is still not finished.